Welcome to the Chamber Files. Every account you are about to hear was submitted to us by a real person. These are not dramatizations. These are not campfire stories somebody half remembered. These are first-hand experiences, sent to us by people who needed someone else to know what happened to them on a dark road, in the rain, completely alone. If something has happened to you, we want to hear it. Send your story to thechamberfiles@gmail.com. Your experience could be the next one told right here on the Chamber Files. Tonight, 3 people share what happened when an ordinary rainy night turned into something they will never stop thinking about. These are their words. Story 1. Derek's Gas Station. My name is Derek. I am 34 years old. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I almost did not stop for gas that night. Looking back, I wish I had kept driving. I was coming back from my buddy Jason's place out in rural Tennessee, a stretch of highway I had done a dozen times, always in daylight, always straightforward. That night was different. The rain was not falling so much as attacking. My wipers were running on high and still losing ground. The road ahead was nothing but 2 blurry streaks of red from the center paint, barely visible through all that water hammering the windshield. My gas warning light came on somewhere around mile marker 41. I remember staring at that sign a second too long and almost drifting into the shoulder. I needed to stop, and I needed to do it soon. My GPS pulled up a station about 3 miles up, one of those old roadside places with a physical sign out front, the kind with changeable plastic letters. I pulled in just as the rain stepped up another gear. The lot was nearly empty. One truck parked way out at the far edge of the property. Nothing else. The lights above the pumps were buzzing, flickering just enough to be irritating. I told myself it was the storm messing with the power. I got out, hunched against the rain, and started pumping. That is when I noticed him. A man standing under the awning near the entrance. Not leaning, not sitting, just standing, completely still, facing out toward the highway. Dark rain jacket, hood pulled all the way up. I figured he was waiting for someone, a ride maybe. I looked away and went back to watching the pump counter. Then the number froze. The screen locked up. I hit cancel, tried again. Nothing. I jogged inside to sort it out. The clerk, a heavy-set guy in his 50s, was sitting behind thick plexiglass. He gave me that slow, tired nod that comes from years of overnight shifts. I told him the pump was not reading my card. He sighed, tapped something on his register, told me to try again. I started back toward the door. The man in the jacket was no longer under the awning. I did not think much of it. Maybe he stepped inside. Maybe he walked to his truck. I pushed back out into the rain, returned to my car, tried the pump. It worked this time. I stood there with the rain pounding the back of my jacket, watching the numbers tick up. And then I heard it. My rear car door opening. Not the wind. A handle being pulled, a latch releasing. The specific sound of someone getting into your back seat. I spun around. The man in the jacket was halfway inside my car, one knee already on the seat, one hand gripping the doorframe. He froze the moment I turned. For a full second, neither of us moved. I could not see much of his face. The hood was pulled so far forward that the flickering lot lights barely caught his features. But I saw his hands. Latex gloves. I do not know how to fully explain what happened in my brain in that moment. It was like reality took a half second to load. Then I slammed the door on his arm as hard as I could. He yanked it back, and I heard him hit the side of the car. I did not wait. I pulled the pump nozzle out, gas still dripping, threw myself into the driver's seat, and hit the locks. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the keys twice. When I finally got the engine started and looked up, he was standing right outside my window. Not running. Not moving toward the entrance. Just standing there. Head tilted a few degrees to the side. Those gloved hands loose at his sides, watching me through the glass. I pulled out of that lot hard enough to almost clip the pump housing, and I was doing 50 on the highway before I even registered I had left. I called 911 about 2 miles down the road. The dispatcher was calm, took my description, told me to keep heading toward the next town. I did not stop until I was somewhere lit up with other people around. The responding officer called me back the following morning. They had found the truck. Reported stolen 3 days earlier out of a town about 90 miles south of where I had stopped. In the truck bed, a canvas duffel. The officer did not tell me everything that was inside it. He told me enough. Rope. A tarp. Zip ties. He was not waiting for a ride. He had been watching that stretch of highway, watching people pull in by themselves, and I just happened to be the one who reacted fast enough. The man was never caught. As of the last time I checked in, he never was. I still drive that route sometimes for work. I still stop for gas on long drives, because you have to. But I do not pump with my back to the lot anymore. I park facing out, so I can see the whole area. And I lock my doors the moment I step away from the car, even for 60 seconds. People think that kind of thing only happens in movies or in headlines that feel far away. I used to think that too. But I still remember those gloves. And I remember how he did not run when I drove away. He just stood there and watched me go. If Derek's story has you rethinking how you stop for gas at night, subscribe to the Chamber Files right now. New accounts from real people drop every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming. Hit that subscribe button so the next story finds you the moment it goes live. Story 2. What Marcus Found on Highway 41. My name is Marcus. I am from Nashville, Tennessee, and I want to say up front that I have gone back and forth for a long time about whether to tell this story publicly. I am telling it now because I think it matters. I think someone else needs to hear it. It was a Tuesday night in late October. I was driving back from a friend's place in rural Tennessee, about 60 miles outside of Nashville, the kind of road where the signs get sparse and the trees crowd the highway and your phone signal just disappears without any warning. I had made that drive plenty of times before. I knew the route. I was not worried. Then came the rain. Not a light shower, sheets of water slamming the windshield so hard my wipers could not keep up. I slowed to around 30 and leaned forward over the wheel trying to read the lane markers. My radio was cutting in and out. My headlights looked thin against all that water. Around the 40-mile mark I felt it. That pull and drag from the front right corner. A flat, right there on a 2-lane stretch with no real shoulder and trees packed tight on both sides. I eased off and rolled onto a small gravel patch just past a drainage ditch. Barely enough room to work. I sat a moment, listening to the rain beat the roof. I had a spare. I had done this before. It was just going to be unpleasant. I stepped out, and the rain hit me like a wall. Cold. Hard. Relentless. Within 30 seconds, my jacket was completely soaked. I got the jack and the spare from the trunk and crouched down beside the flat. The gravel was soft, and my knees were already sinking into it. Then headlights appeared behind me. A white pickup slowed and pulled up about 20 feet back. I stood and waved them off. I was fine, just handling it. But the truck did not move. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Big guy, maybe 6'2", yellow rain slicker, moving toward me at a calm, unhurried pace with both hands in his pockets. He called out over the rain, asking if I needed a hand. I told him I was okay, and just changing the tire. He looked at the car, looked at me, and said something about how older model cars sometimes had a metric issue with lug nuts, and asked if my wrench fit. It was a reasonable thing to say, the kind of thing a person who works with vehicles would know to ask. I told him I had not tried yet. He said he had a full kit in his truck and offered to grab it. I said sure. He walked back. Something small pulled at me right then, something I could not name. I kept working, loosening the lug nuts, positioning the jack. The man came back a few minutes later with a small canvas bag. He crouched next to me and handed over a wrench. We worked in near silence. The rain was loud enough that you had to raise your voice to be heard, so the quiet between us did not feel completely unnatural. Then he said something that made my hand stop. He asked if I was Mike's friend. From Clarksville. I told him I did not know anyone by that name in Clarksville. He looked at me and smiled, said it must be his mistake, that he thought he recognized me. I went back to tightening the lug nuts, but I could not shake that smile. It was too settled, too comfortable. like a person who was not worried about anything because they already knew how things were going to play out. I got the last lug nut on and stood up. I thanked him and told him I was good to go. He stood too, but he did not step back. He was maybe 4 feet from me, and he said I did not have to be in such a rush. I told him I had a long drive ahead. He said the roads were bad tonight, and that I should wait it out. Nothing in those words was outright threatening. His tone was flat and calm. But my body was already reacting in a way I had no control over. The hair on my arms was up, and it had nothing to do with the cold. I picked up the flat tire and the jack and walked to the back of my car. He followed me, not aggressively. Just followed, the way someone does when they are not done with a conversation. I put everything in the trunk, closed it, and said thanks again. Then I turned toward my driver's door. He was leaning against the passenger side of my car, looking at me, still with that same expression, flat and unreadable, completely unfazed by the rain pouring over him. I got in, locked the door immediately, put the key in. My hands were not steady. Through the passenger window he just stood there, watching, not moving, not speaking. I pulled out, and I drove. 15 minutes later I was in a small town called White House. I pulled into a gas station under the lights and sat there until my heart slowed down. I called my friend back in Nashville and told him what happened. He went quiet for a moment, and then told me he had seen something on the local news the previous summer about that stretch of highway. A man approaching stranded drivers. I looked it up when I got home. 2 separate incident reports filed with the county sheriff over 18 months. Both involved men driving alone on that highway. Both described a man in a white pickup who offered assistance. One of the men said he had accepted an offer to sit in the truck while his car was being worked on. He got out when the truck stopped at an intersection and ran. The second report was incomplete, listed as an ongoing investigation. I will never know what the man in the yellow slicker intended. Maybe he was genuinely odd, and nothing more than that. But here is what I cannot move past. When he crouched next to me in the rain with that canvas bag, he had his hand inside it the entire time. He never pulled out a single tool. He never once touched my car. He just stayed close enough that I could not move without going through him. I do not drive that stretch of road alone anymore, and on nights when it rains and my headlights catch brake lights pulled off to the side of the road, I keep going. Every single time. Because some people are not stopping to help. They are stopping to wait. Story 3. The night I gave Gerald a ride. My name is Caleb. I work at a distribution warehouse outside of Lexington, Kentucky, and I want to be clear about something before I get into this. I am not a suspicious person by nature. I stop to help people when I can. I give people the benefit of the doubt. That is just how I was raised. So when I tell you what happened the night I picked up Gerald, I want you to understand that it was not carelessness on my part. I did what I thought any decent person would do. And I came very close to not making it home because of it. It was a Tuesday in late October. I had just finished a double shift, 12 hours on my feet, barely ate anything, and the drive home was 40 minutes on a 2-lane highway through flat farmland with nothing on either side but dark fields. It started raining around 8 in the evening. Heavy and relentless. The kind that makes your windshield look like a waterfall even with the wipers on high. I had the heat up, the radio low, and I was focused on getting home. About 15 minutes in, I saw a truck pulled off on the shoulder. Hazard lights blinking orange through the rain. A man standing beside it with one arm raised, not frantic, just waving slow and steady the way someone does when they need help but are trying not to scare anyone off. I slowed down. I know what people say about stopping for strangers. I know the rule. But it was close to 40 degrees out there. It was pouring, and this man was already soaked to the bone. I pulled up behind him and rolled my window halfway down. He jogged over. Gray jacket, jeans, lace-up work boots, the kind you wear when you are spending the day outdoors. His face was weathered and tired in a way that reminded me of my uncle. Nothing alarming about him. He introduced himself as Gerald. Said his battery had gone dead and he had cables in the back if I could give him a jump. I told him I had cables too. We pulled them out, Got everything connected in about 2 minutes, and I went back to my driver's seat while he tried the ignition. Nothing. We tried again. Nothing. Gerald came back to my window and scratched the back of his neck. He said his brother lived maybe 6 miles up the road and asked if there was any chance I could run him up there. Said his brother could come tow the truck in the morning. 6 miles. 10 minutes out of my way. I said yes. He climbed in. I noticed right away how soaked he was, water dripping off his jacket, the smell of motor oil hanging around him. He thanked me again and pointed me up the highway. For the first few minutes we talked like normal. He said he had been out doing fence repair on a property nearby and lost track of time. Said his phone had died hours earlier. All of it added up. All of it sounded completely believable. Then around mile 3, Gerald went quiet, not relaxed quiet. The other kind. He turned slightly toward the passenger window, shoulders angled away from me, and just stopped talking. I kept my eyes on the road. The rain had gotten heavier, and I could barely see 40 feet ahead. Then I noticed his hand. He had moved it from his lap to the side of the door. Slowly. His fingers were resting near the door handle, not gripping it, just resting there. His eyes were still pointed at the window. I told myself I was imagining things. Told myself Gerald was just tired and thinking about his truck and his brother and getting dry. Then he spoke. He asked if I lived out this way. I had not told him a single thing about myself. I had kept it general on purpose, the way you do when you are cautious without wanting to seem rude. And the way he asked it, flat and unhurried, did not sound like curiosity. It sounded like someone filling in the last blank on a form. I told him I was just passing through. He nodded slowly and said, "Smart." I tightened both hands on the wheel. My phone was in the cup holder. I already knew we were in a dead zone. I had driven that stretch 100 times. And if Gerald had spent the day on a property out here, he knew it too. I started watching him without turning my head. His hand was still at the door handle. His jaw was set. And I caught the edge of something dark sitting between his hip and the seat. Tucked in. I could not tell you exactly what it was. But the angle of it, the way it sat close against him, I was not going to wait to find out. I pressed the gas down without saying a word, not flooring it, just letting the speed climb. Gerald felt it immediately. He asked what I was doing. I said I thought I saw something in the road. Deer? Maybe? He did not respond to that. He shifted his weight, and his hand came off the door handle and dropped back to his lap. I said I had just remembered there was a gas station about a mile ahead, open late, and that they had a phone he could use to call his brother. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I thought you said your brother's place was just up here." He caught it. The slip, because I had said his brother, and now I had said your brother, and he knew I was lying, or at least covering something. There was a half second where neither of us acknowledged it. I said I meant your brother, and I said the station would be faster. When the gas station appeared through the rain ahead, lit up and visible from about a quarter mile out, I let out a slow breath through my nose. I pulled into the lot hard and came to a stop directly under the lights, right in front of the windows. I said, "Here we go." Gerald sat still. He did not reach for the door right away. He looked at the gas station, then looked at me, and for a moment the whole cab was silent except for the rain and the engine idling. Then he opened the door and stepped out. No thank you. No goodbye. He walked past the entrance and around the side of the building, without looking back. I locked my doors, pulled out of that lot, and did not stop until I was 20 minutes down the road and had 2 bars of signal on my phone. I called the county sheriff's department and gave them everything. The location where the truck was parked. Gerald's description. The direction he had been pointing me toward. They took the information. I never heard back from them. Nothing ever came up in the local news that connected to that night. I do not know who Gerald really was or what he had planned. I do not know what was tucked against that seat. I do not know if that night was the first time he had tried something like that, or if it was not. What I know is that I trusted a feeling I could not explain. That cold, quiet pull in my gut telling me the man sitting next to me was not who he said he was. And the only reason I am here to tell this story is because I listened to it. Whatever road you are on, whatever night you are driving through, do not ignore that feeling. It does not always come with a reason you can put into words, but it is there for a reason. Trust it. That is Derek, Marcus, and Caleb. 3 people, 3 rainy nights, 3 moments where the wrong choice would have changed everything. If their story stayed with you, make sure you are subscribed to the Chamber Files right now. New true accounts drop every single week from real people who need someone to hear what happened to them. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss one. And if something has happened to you out there on a dark road or alone somewhere you should not have been, send it to us. The address is thecamberfiles@gmail.com. We read every single submission. We will see you in the next one.